On a similar note to the development and cities making changes, sweeping across the states for the last few years, different municipalities are banning fossil fuel hookups in new construction. So what that means is like when you build a house, you are not allowed as a builder to set it up to receive gas, propane, oil.
I'm going to show my ignorance here. They consider, well, I guess, I was like, really, not even gas?
It's fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Now,
what?
It's like New York, Boston.
Like, just like hook up a compost bin to it and be like, here you go.
Yeah.
We'll do a couple like lemons, run into a car battery.
You have to compress your compost into bricks and burn that.
Oh my god!
No, but the idea is that space heating and water heating make up 40%, estimated 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, and so the idea would be to centralize these things for electricity production at a high efficiency level, right? Because one giant power plant will be 10 times as efficient as your personal natural gas furnace in your home. And then the distribution lines are already in place for all electricity. Heat pumps are also infinitely more efficient than pretty much every other type of heating source in your home. So basically, they want to remove all of those items. And eventually, the other idea is obviously at a federal level and even at a state level or provincial level, they're mandating that the energy producers have to go green. So it's much easier to say, okay, everyone has to use electricity, and now we're going to go to the electricity producers and make them become more efficient. And so in turn, the second an energy producer becomes 10% more efficient, every single home just became 10% more efficient. Versus trying to say, okay, now everyone's on furnaces, so now we're going to put out programs to try and convert everybody to heat pumps.
Just random cities are doing this?
Denver, Boston, New York, like big boy cities.
We'll see how the states intervene on that, because I could see a similar level of intervention from at the state level saying like, no.
Same with this was one that I was like a little bit close to home because I just bought my propane stove. Fossil fuel powered appliances. I was like, you can't get rid of the propane stove. There's so many people out there that are like, you cannot abolish the propane stove. It's the best way to cook.
Well, here's the ironic thing here in Nova Scotia is that Nova Scotia Power burns coal. And I know 100%. They're trying to phase it out. But people who switch over to power here in Nova Scotia for like the good of the environment, it's laughably ironic, and they're doing the opposite. Now they're trying to push towards that.
They're improving very quickly, though.
Like, they're just burning that coal.
They're improving very quickly. But anyways, I thought that was interesting. It's been going on for years. This is not a new thing. I was just reading into it, and I was like, this is an interesting idea. And I think, honestly, it makes sense. Like, I think it's the right move to make in a lot of ways, because having these little generation stations in everyone's home is not efficient.
Yeah.
It's not efficient at all.
And this is a total digression, but you see our provincial government also blocked a proposed rate hike by Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah, this is a close to home one, but yeah, so our provincial government squashed a requested rate hike by Nova Scotia Power. It's up for debate on a lot of ways. I personally don't totally agree with the idea that they squashed it. It's funny because I have colleagues that work at NSP, and they're like, no, I think this is good. It's for the better of everybody. But I think in the long run, it actually causes more damage. And Judy Steele mentioned it in all Nova Scotia. She responded to a few different people who came at her and the company of Emera, being like, oh, this company's so rich, they make so much money. But really, Nova Scotia Power as a whole is a very low returning, basically generation company, asset company. And the big problem is the second that they start losing more money like this, or they make less money, less investment in more renewable resources will take place. Less investment in the power grid will take place because the money's not there. The second you suck out that $300 million, everyone's unhappy with how reliable their power is now. Do you think paying them less is going to allow them to do it? Well, and realistically, they were a fairly reasonable rate hike relative to what the inflation numbers have been and how it's all been going.
It's also the same situation where like there is a utility review board.
Yeah.
Right? And their job is arm's length to approve, and negotiate these rate hikes, and for the premier to just say, nope, we're going to overrule them. And why? Because it's a really popular thing to do with like the general Twitter universe,
you got a lot
social
of high
media.
Fives for that.
You get a lot of high fives for saying, naughty you, Nova Scotia Power. And I certainly don't love Nova Scotia Power, but we've entrusted people who know this stuff to say, does this make sense? And they said yes, and then the government says, well, we don't care about your opinion anyway. So then why do we have a utility review board? Why do we have them?
Also, again, if you're a landlord and you're listening and you are for the cap, just consider they did the rent control, and are you for that? And for all the reasons that we've talked about, the inflationary costs and all the expenses you have, and we've talked about in rent controlled places, the old deteriorated buildings stay old and continue to depreciate. So that's what's going to happen with our power system if basically a premier decides to make a sweeping move like that.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.